All you're going to need for this project is your yarn of choice, hook of choice, and a sewing needle as well. To create the waffle stitch, you're going to want to do a chain that has multiples of 4 plus 3 for your foundation chain. So for this project, we're going to do a chain of 32 plus the extra 3 will be 35. Here I'm at my 32, so now we're going to add that extra 3 to get to our 35. And then here you're going to place a double crochet into the 4th chain from your hook. So count 4 down and then place a double crochet into that chain. And for row 1, you're just going to place a double crochet in the rest of the stitches all the way across. Once you get to the end, you're going to go ahead and chain 3. And then go ahead and flip your work. Alright, to start the texture of the waffle stitch, so you're going to yarn over, and we're not going to go into the first stitch, but we're actually going to work behind this first rectangle bar. You're going to put your hook behind there, and you're going to do a front post double crochet. After you've done that, kind of look at the back of your work and make sure you're skipping the stitch that's immediately behind that bar. And you're going to place a double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And after that, we're just going to repeat that all the way across. So we're going to go ahead behind this bar and do a front post double crochet in that next stitch. And then after that, we're going to follow that up with a double crochet in each of your next 2 stitches. And go ahead and continue this till the end, and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. Once you're at the end of this row and you basically have 2 stitches left, you're going to go ahead and do your last front post double crochet in this bar here, and then you're going to end the row with a double crochet into the top of the chain 3 at the very end. Now you're going to go ahead and chain 3 and flip your work, and then I'll show you how to do the returning rows. Alright, you're going to start this row by double crocheting not into the very first stitch, but into the next. And if you flip your work and kind of look at where that placement is, it's where the front post double crochets are from the previous row. And then next, we're going to do 2 front post double crochets in a row. And there's one, and this is your second. And then you're going to follow that up by a double crochet into the top of the next stitch. And so this row is basically opposite of what the other side is like. So instead of a front post double crochet followed by 2 doubles, it's 1 double crochet followed by 2 front post doubles. And then you work that all the way across. So here I'm doing a double crochet, and then I'm going to follow that up with 2 front post double crochets. So we've got 1 going behind that bar, and there is our second, followed by a double crochet into the top of the next, and repeat. I'll meet you back at the end. Okay, so now we've done our last set of the 2 front post double crochets. We're down to 2 stitches, and you're going to go ahead and double crochet into the top of the next, and you'll see that's like where the very first bar is from the previous row. And then in the very end, you're going to put another double crochet in the top of the chain 3, and that is the end of row 3. Chain 3 and turn your work, and now you can see some of this beautiful texture that we've got. I'll just do a couple more of these with you really quick. So you're going to do a front post double crochet into the first bar right here. And follow that up with a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, always making sure you are skipping that chain that's behind the bar that we just worked into. and another front post double crochet, followed by 2 double crochets. And that's it. Just repeat that all the way across. And then when you're at the end of the row, you're going to do your last front post double crochet in that last bar on the end, followed by a double crochet in the top of the chain 3 in that last stitch. So I'll just go over it one more time. You're going to go ahead and yarn over. Don't go directly into the first stitch, but into the next. You're going to place a double crochet, and that should line up with the bars in the front. And then you're going to do a front post double crochet in each of the next 2. Follow that up with a double crochet into the top of the next, and repeat that all the way around. At the end of the row, you're going to place a double crochet into the second to last stitch there, and that is going to line up with the front post double crochets on the opposite side, and then place a double crochet into the top of the chain 3 for the very last stitch. Chain 3 and flip your work, or flip your work and then chain 3, whatever works. And then continue to work those 2 rows until you have your desired length. For this project, I'm working until I have 8 rows of these squares. Now, obviously, since we are making a bag, you are going to need 2 of these panels, so go ahead and just work that pattern twice. And then we're going to work on sewing these together. So when you sew them together, you're going to want to work with the wrong sides touching each other. So go ahead and place those together. And I'll go ahead and show you how I go about crocheting them together. So I am just going to go ahead and chain 1 here on the one I'm still attached to, and then go into that same square and then the square behind it, and you're just going to attach them with a single crochet. And then this first one's pretty easy. You're just going to follow the stitches and line them up, and they should be equal. And you're going to go through both of the sets of the squares and single crochet all the way down to the corner. And then when we get to the corner, it's just a little bit different, so I will meet you there. So once you're down to the corner at the end, you're basically just going to go ahead and do the same thing. You're going to crochet through both of these squares and do a single crochet. But then go ahead and chain 1, and then place another single crochet into the same stitches through both of those squares. And then it'll just create that nice little rounded corner to help you work along the next side. This side's going to be a little bit more tricky because there aren't the defined stitches there. So you're basically just going to want to work 2 single crochets into the space of the squares on both sides to attach it, obviously. And then work a single crochet kind of through the 3D rectangle bars on both sides to finish off like that square. And then you're just going to repeat that all the way down. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. So in the space in between the 3D bars, you're going to want to fit 2 single crochets, and then you'll close it off with a single crochet into the bar for that square, and then just keep working that all the way down. And then same thing here, when you reach your corner, go ahead and do a single crochet through each of the panels, chain 1, and then single crochet into that same space and create your nice little rounded edge. And then you're going to go ahead and crochet along this last side. And this one is easier because it has those nice defined stitches again. So just make sure you're lining up the stitches and single crochet all the way down. And then when we get to the end of this third side, I'll show you how I finish off the top that we leave open just to make it look more polished before we add the strap. Okay, now obviously since this is going to be a bag, we're going to leave the top open. So we're just going to finish off kind of polishing up the edges, working around the top without closing it up. So you're just going to go ahead and place a single crochet into one side. And then this is kind of one of those wonky rows where you have to create your own stitches. So same thing, just kind of try to do 2 single crochets into each of the square spaces, and then another single crochet lined up with the bar, and then 2 single crochets within that little square space, and then another crochet in the bar. And then you're just going to work that all the way around the top just to give it like this nice polished finish where it looks like nice and cohesive with the edging around the rest of the bag. I'll just meet you down at the corner in case that's a little tricky. And you can do this however you want, but this is just what I did on the edge here. I just put my hook through kind of both sides of the 2 panels and close that off with a single crochet. And then I just chained 1, and then I placed a single crochet into the first stitch on the opposite side. And then you're just going to repeat and work all the way down, kind of creating those stitches since it is that like unpolished side and you do need to create those stitches. And then at the very end, you're just going to go ahead and connect it to wherever like that highest piece is to stitch it together and finish it off. And then you're going to cut your loose end and you can just tie it off. All right, and this is what we're looking like so far. So now you have your whole little pouch. The front is definitely going to look a little cleaner than the back, but for the most part, the pattern obviously is going to look the same. It's just the edging that looks a little neater on the one side. But we've got our little pouch made, and I'll show you how to go ahead and do the strap that I chose. So go ahead and chain 4, and then we're going to do some Tunisian stitching. So go ahead and you're going to place your hook into the next chain from the hook, yarn over, pull through, keep both of those on the hook, and then you're going to go through the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, go into the last stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then at the end you're going to go ahead and chain 1 through the first stitch, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And then for the next row, you're going to work behind those vertical bars. So you go under the first one, yarn over, pull through, go under the next, yarn over, pull through, and then go into the stitch at the end, yarn over, pull through, and then go ahead and chain 1, and then work through the next 2 stitches, and the last 2 stitches all the way across. Super simple. So work behind that bar, yarn over, pull up, behind the bar, yarn over, pull up, and into that last stitch, yarn over and pull up, chain 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. And then you're just going to create your desired length. I'm doing 1 long strap, but sometimes I create bags where I do 2 shorter bag handles, also using the same pattern. So whatever you think is best for your project. So with most crochet handles, this is going to stretch with use. So I try to stretch it out as much as possible as I'm making it, so that way I don't have to worry about it later. So that's just what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of stretching and pulling and then continuing to work, so that way I know my desired length is more accurate at the end, because it's already kind of stretched out. Leave yourself a little bit of wiggle room for it to stretch out a little bit more, because you're going to put weight into your bag and whatnot. But definitely make sure that you are accounting for the fact that this is going to stretch, and you don't make it super long and then find out that it's going to get even longer when it stretches. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, once you have your desired strap length, you're going to go ahead and sew it onto your project. So I'll briefly show you what I do. So even though I kind of stretched it out and turned it into like a rounded ropey texture, just make sure your ends are flattened so that way you can place it nice and flush against your project. And then you're just going to sew it on. So whatever sewing techniques you like to use to make your straps nice and tight, go ahead and do that. I just weave in back and forth through the inside and the outside of the project. And then I also usually kind of wrap the yarn under the bottom of like where the loose end is, just to get some extra support through the bottom, and then I kind of wind it around like in circles on the bottom. I'm not really sure the best way to explain it, but you're just going to stitch it all together. Whatever sewing method works best for you, go for it. And then after you've sewn the strap on to your liking on both sides, you're just going to tie off any loose ends and weave them in with whatever techniques that you like to use. I'm just going to go through these stitches on the inside and start weaving down the inside of the bag to hide my loose end here. If you want to work kind of like back and forth, you can do that. I'm just going to work farther into the bag and then cut off the end. But if you want to do more like zigzaggy, whatever works best for you. So this is what it's looking like so far. You can leave it as is, or I will go ahead and show you how to add the fringe. You can wear it just on one shoulder or crossbody, whatever works for you. I accounted for the fact I know this is going to stretch a little. And you can use a DVD case or a book, or honestly probably just wrap around your hand, whatever works best. I'm just using this as a little tool to help me wrap around to make my little circle for my tassel. So I'm wrapping the yarn around 4 times. And then that is a nice amount for what I want for the thickness of the tassel for my project. Then I'm just going to cut it off and we'll go from there. So you're going to go ahead and slide that off of whatever tool you're using, if you're using one, and I'll go ahead and show you how to attach that now. So I'm going to attach this first one in this corner here. So you're just going to place your hook through where you want to attach it. And then you're going to place that through all of your ends in your circle here and pull that through. Sometimes it's tricky. And then once you do that and you have your loop popping through here, you're just going to pull the other end of your circle through there to tie a nice little knot to your project. And then once you tighten that, you're just going to cut off the ends and create your fringe. And then go ahead and space these however you want and continue working that all the way across. Okay, now obviously if you are a minor, I am not condoning playing with fire, so use your best discretion here. But since this is acrylic and these are just kind of loose ends, I like to take a lighter and then just get it close to the edge where it gets kind of melty and it seals it in, just to help avoid any extra fringing on the fringe, if that makes sense. We want to keep it nice and clean and less fuzzy, and hopefully the yarn won't separate. And then you can just continue that with every piece. And here she is with the fringe. I hope this was a relatively easy, fun tutorial for a cute summer bag. You can obviously modify this to make a bigger size if you'd like. Thanks for watching.